Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. We're glad you're here. It's the dog days of leasing season. Move-ins are stacking up. Next year's budgets are taking shape. The mercury is climbing, and the data isn't slowing down either. Survey scores, mystery shop results, training reports, market comps, they all hold answers. The hard part is finding those answers fast enough to act on them. Today, we're going to show you how Intelligence Plus inside Performance HQ does the sweating for you. Before we dive in, a few quick housekeeping items. First, we are recording this session and we will send the replay to your inbox tomorrow. Next, we want to hear from you. Drop your questions throughout the session in the Q&A box on the Zoom control panel at any time, and our panelists will answer them toward the end. Lastly, and this is a good reason to stick around to the very end, we're giving one lucky attendee a countertop nugget ice maker. Yes, the good ice, the soft, chewable, good to the last cube kind you usually have to leave the office for. It comes with a syrup set and Grace Hill tumblers to share, so you can mix up your own flavored drinks during a busy season. Consider it our way of helping you keep your cool while everyone else sweats the data. Remember, you must be present to win, so stick around. We'll draw the winner before we wrap. To get us started, I'll hand things over to our two Grace Hill experts. Today we have Jay Thompson, Senior Manager of Sales Engineering. Jay has been both a regional property manager for a national brand and a success manager for Grace Hill Strategic Accounts. So he knows firsthand what it takes to elevate property performance and reduce operating risk. Also joining us today is David Scarbrough, Associate Director of Product Management. David leads product strategy for Intelligence Plus and works closely with our customers to shape how AI-driven insights and recommendations show up inside Performance HQ. He'll walk us through what's new, what's next, and how the platform connects the data across training, surveys, mystery shopping, and Hello Data. Jay, David, welcome to you both.
Thank you. Awesome. Thanks so much, Kayla. We're so excited to be here with you. I'm a little jealous of the good ice. Everybody wants the good ice, so stick around. Hopefully, you're going to win that. Before we get into any of this, though, for a moment, I just want to have a story time with Jay and David. So humor me for just a moment. But David, I got to know, it's August, right? What does August look like in the Scarborough house right now?
Oh, that's a great question. Honestly, I would say it's controlled chaos. So I just got back from a vacation, and we all know how that goes. So it means playing catch up against a mountain of unread emails. And then on top of that, we are scrambling to get my son ready for the new school year and beyond. Since this year he is graduating, so he's a senior this year. So college application processes. So going through that. And then of course, naturally, right, our home AC decided that this was the perfect week to quit on us. So yeah, August is definitely keeping us on our toes to say the least.
Fair. August is Augustine, right? So, first of all, best of luck to your son. It is upcoming year. As a Floridian, I'm sending you all the good vibes with the AC. That is
I
not.
appreciate it.
So in all seriousness, though, right? The reason why I wanted to start off with that is because August is usually that controlled chaos. It's when all of summer finally shows up. You take that last minute vacation out with the kids before school starts. Hopefully, you don't have AC issues that come around, but it's when even sometimes in particularly multifamily, you're in the heat of it all, right? There's budgets, there's move-ins, all of that. So story time with a purpose, right? That we understand that controlled chaos. Like Kayla said, I was fortunate enough to serve on your side of the ball game, and I'm going to do my best to describe an August in your world. Do me a favor in the chat, tell me how close I get to it, right? But August, move-ins are stacking up. You're coming out of that busy leasing season, so move-ins are stacking up. If you are in student housing, you definitely are in the throes of that right now. Your teams continue to be short staffed. So maybe you're supporting in a variety of ways. I'm meeting a lot of corporate professionals right now that are even playing the roles of regionals because unfortunately there is a position vacancy. Probably got a mystery shop somewhere in an inbox that needs to get read at some point. You got some resident sentiment feedback that's coming in, but if you're being very honest, you've skimmed it at a high level. This is always the kicker. One of your properties is underperforming, right? And your owners want a SWOT analysis and they want a remediation plan by the end of today. Executive summaries, because you just wrapped up month end not that long ago. So you're probably thinking about executive summaries and you're thinking about marketing plans. And then here's the cherry on top. Budget's due. At least that first pass, right, is due. And those people just don't want guesses. They want justification, right? So everything that's been building is coming to a head, right? Robbie, I appreciate that. Well, I don't appreciate it. I wish it was not controlled chaos at its best right now in your office. But glad to hear that resonates a little bit. And hopefully we're going to help you find some of those answers, right? But here's the thing, David, when you and I were talking earlier, the thing is, all of those kind of questions, particularly when we're talking about that underperforming asset or your budget numbers, all of that data to help you make those good, justifiable answers and with efficiency, they already exist somewhere. For a lot of people, it exists in a system or typically in multiple systems somewhere out there, right? The problem is turning that into an answer takes somebody's Tuesday night. So somebody's working late tonight because they got to go gather all that information. And if I'm kind of telling on myself when I was on your side of the ball game with you all, sometimes some of that just didn't get done. And here's why. You got a phone call that one of your owners is making a surprise property visit on Thursday, so you've got to prep. Or you just got a brand new acquisition and you're taking over a whole portfolio. So sometimes that just the data doesn't get pulled, but you still make a decision around it. With that said, Kayla is going to launch a poll for us, but I'd love to know how many hours a week does it take you or someone on your team to just pull and verify the data? Not analyzing it, just pulling and verifying. This is anonymous, right? So feel free to be honest in here. And so we'll get that for just a minute. I want to make sure we get a pretty good snapshot in here, but how honest? So. All right, we're going to wrap it up here in just a second. We got a pretty good quorum there. So yeah, if we want to go ahead and we will. So look at those results. Pretty, if you think about it, pretty well split, right? Now, if you think less than 5 hours, that's a little bit below what national research says. You're 5 to 10 hours, people. That almost tracks with what we're typically seeing. So think about that. A single day of work simply devoted um, to this, right? To being an admin rather than doing some of the ops of your job. 10 to 20 hours, my heart goes out to you all because that right there is time consuming. That takes your attention away from other things that really move your NOI needle. And listen, I really have a heart for the people that said no idea. And that's part of the problem, right? Because you don't know. So what I will tell you is research shows it's typically 6 to 8 hours a week for most people, right? And that again is just getting the data and verifying it. That's not analyzing, that's not getting to it, it's just pulling it together. So if we flip that a little bit more, that is literally 2 months of the year. 2 months out of your year where you need to be driving operational excellence that is devoted to getting that data. If we look at it in terms of dollars and cents, for some people, that's almost north of $20,000 a year in a payroll, right? And that again is just spending to get you to the starting line, which is exactly why sometimes we just make decisions based on guts or feelings. So that's our whole webinar today, is we want to show you 3 ways that Intelligence Plus gives you the answers without hopefully having to spend a weeknight or a Saturday night doing this. So David, I'm going to kick it over to you for the next little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. And look, so we are going to show you 3 ways. I'm going to be presenting one of those ways. So if you're going to stick around for that one. That'll be the best one. No, I'm just teasing with you, Jay. So yeah, I too wanted to start with a question as well. So this is kind of, I think this is a question at the heart of everything that we're going to be showing today, and I do want answers from this one in the chat. So make sure you plug in answers in the chat. All right. So question is, you've got an underperforming asset, occupancy soft, renewals are down, so you know something is wrong. How do you figure out whether that's a people problem, a promotion problem, a pricing, or product problem? Now, don't make your answer aspirationally what you would do. Just type in the chat what you actually do. It's Monday morning. Drop it in the chat.
Getting some answers.
Market
I have Amy that
analysis,
says
slicing
perform
lots of
market
data. Yeah,
Yeah,
those track for sure.
into the data. Yep. I think the double click into the data is right. Where are those systems pulling that data?
Exactly, exactly.
Robbie, I enjoy the humor there, right? Put it on a dartboard, we just throw it, and there you go. So,
Yeah, and I've talked with a lot of customers. These are definitely tracking here. Um, we often hear, hey, I log into a list of systems. Um, Yep, data, 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 data for sure. Some cases people will say, I walk the property or I call the RM, which may be the right instinct. But it's also why it could be very long because you're essentially rebuilding from memory what your data already knows. Let's see, tracking metrics, performance reports. Anybody here go with their gut? Because I've heard that before as well. I just go with my gut. Shops, training reports, operating KPI reports, right? And so no, Phyllis is like, no, nobody's going with their gut. But look, based on your answers, I mean, it's clear to see that that there's a lot of systems you guys are talking about. Data, data, data. We've already talked about how that's can be a 6 hours a week process just to aggregate that data. Um, Data in 6 different spots. So we spend so much time aggregating that data, and then we have to analyze. By the time that's done, there's another issue.
mm,
I think Robbie just hit the nail on the head here in exactly what we're talking about. And so, um, what we're going to be showing you today is how you could easily take that data and it translates to performance results and performance improvements. So some of you may be familiar with Performance HQ. You may also you may know it as, hey, that's the place where our training lives. Um, Maybe your surveys and your shops are in there too. But here's what I want you to ask yourself or reconsider. Those aren't just 3 products that you happen to buy from the same vendor. Those are actually 3 answers to the questions that I just asked: the people, product, pricing, promotion. Um, how so? Well, a mystery shop tells you what happened on a tour. A survey tells you how the resident felt about it and what they think of the asset itself. Training records will tell you what the team member was actually prepared to do. And then Hello Data tells you what the property down the street was charging, whether they're offering any concessions, and what amenities they advertise, all at the same time. So you have your people, your promotion, your pricing, your product, and they do overlap. For instance, a shop tells you about your people and your promotion at the same time. That's the whole point. Any one of them alone gives you a suspect, but together they give you a root cause. Said another way, each one is technically a report separately. Somebody pulls it, somebody reads it, and heaven forbid it just goes into a folder and it is never looked at again. But together they form a diagnosis. And that's what Intelligence Plus is. That's what we're going to be showing you today. It's the layer that reads across all of these data sets and tells you what to act on first. And what we're going to be starting with is our Ask Gracie feature, which is how you could interact with it in a conversational way.
hey, David, before we go further, first of all, I love about together their diagnosis, right? And I think about when you go to the doctor, I don't want them literally just hearing one symptom and going, here it is, this is what's the matter. I need them to look holistically at the picture, right? But I do get
Exactly.
this question often when we're demoing, which is if I only have one of those products that you're talking about,
Yeah.
does any of this work for me today?
It does. But I think that the key takeaway here is not to its fullest potential. I'd rather say that just plainly out front, right off the bat. I mean, one signal It answers one of those four questions. Four signals tells you what it actually is. That's the difference that we're talking about. And we're going to take a look at that during the demonstrations today.
Awesome, which is why we are done with Death by PowerPoint, and we're going to drop directly into the system and start having show and tell, if you will. So before I get started, humor me. Many of you may already be in Performance HQ, and for those of you that are, thank you for being partners. We hope that we can show you really how to elevate to the next level. But I would be remiss to think some of you may not be in Performance HQ today. So very quickly, Performance HQ, you will hear me affectionately call it PHQ, so forgive me if I go by the acronym, but PHQ or Performance HQ is the system in which all of our solutions live. It's a consolidated tech stack, right? We already know operators today have upwards of like 15 to 20 different logins. So anytime we can consolidate that, that's a win. Now, if I'm being my gut reaction to that, if this system was just about reducing logins, I think that's a clap in a conference room and we move on. The power of Performance HQ is because we are collecting data from all these different areas, from your training records, from your comps, from your resident survey. They then can be bubbled up through a layer that we call Intelligence Plus, where we make actionable insights and recommendations for you to move forward. So let's drop right in, right? And so gonna give it just a minute to catch up here. My internet always lags a little when we're on Zoom, but I am gonna put again my hat on when I was a regional manager. It's the end of a Tuesday night. It's been a hard day. And I'm just gonna ask an honest, not a polished question, an honest question, simply a tired one, right? So I'm gonna ask, I need a high-level overview of my portfolio's performance. And Gracie is now going to parse through data in here, and she's going to respond. Now, she does, again, have a lot of data that she's got to sift through, so she'll take just a little bit to respond to that. Through the power of television, though, we've already teed up these answers. So let's go ahead and kind of look at what she said, right? So she said, hey, here's where we're at. She gives me some strength for some of those assets. So where I'm doing well, and that's important. But tonight, because I'm tired and I just got to know how to elevate, I really want to know where my areas for improvement are. So the first thing she's called out for me is I have some critical property triage that needs to be done because I've got some scores that are really threatening the integrity of my occupancy, my NOI, right? She calls out the ones that I specifically, and as I begin to read through, it's HVAC failures, mold issues, unreliable trash service, maintenance and repairs, communication and responsiveness. I immediately, back in your seats, get this sinking feeling about what is this talking about in terms of resident churn? Where is my occupancy going to be in September, October, November as I lead into 2027, right? So now she's going to give me some more, but I'm going to be real honest. I probably right here, opportunity number one, got that gut sinking feeling of, oh no, what are we going to do about this? So I followed up with a question and asked, so based on that, which of my properties have the highest likelihood of resident churn? Because I'm nervous about that. And I want to know, have any of the teams been trained around those gaps, right? So again, Viridian Collective, remember that name because that was on the very first part, but it's also here as well, is that's one of my top ones. And here's what's even more concerning. They're at a 14.3% compliance level, right? So we're talking about two up here. And again, this is survey data, so some of this stuff I don't have. But we're also then going to key up for you those key insights and your next steps, right? What I love about this, when we talked about all those, when you were saying data, data, data in the chat, right? Or we got to go analyze all this data to even get to the starting line. What I love is this question, it spanned multiple things. It spans your resident feedback as well as your training. This also works for mystery shopping and policies. If I want to go where there are policy acknowledgments that I need to have my team, maybe look at surrounding these gaps, what would those be? Gracie would make a recommendation on that. So this is obviously a powerful tool when you're tired and you need to go on. However, with that said, Intelligence Plus also sometimes flags those issues. I'm not going to steal David's thunder. That's the part that he's got coming up. But David, before we go on, I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
Where do these numbers come from?
That's a great question. So the great thing here is Gracie's not making anything up. Gracie isn't hallucinating. So every figure traces back to your specific data. It's not going out on the internet and pulling anything from there. So it traces back to the actual shop records, the actual completion logs, the survey results. This isn't a model that's producing a plausible sounding number. It's built on well-structured, verifiable data. And that's one really key element there, well-structured data. So everybody, I think, are using large language models right now. But it's the old adage is true. Garbage in is garbage out with an LLM. And so that's where a tool like this really sets itself apart from just trying to use an LLM model with unstructured data. So we built it that way on purpose. And the reason is because the first time the large language model gives you a bad answer, that's the last time you're actually going to trust it. So we spent a great deal of time ensuring that you could be confident in the answers that you get from Gracie and that they're relevant and that they're accurate.
I love that. Great answer. All right, I'm going to steal one more bit here before we turn it over to David. And I want to go, and again, through the power of television, you've noticed I just want to come back and let you see that again, Gracie did answer my question. But as we come back, I want to go back and I want to come back to that SWOT analysis because a lot of times, and again, I've been in your shoes. For me, when I had to do an old SWOT, yes, I would look at comp sets, of course. I would look at what the development pipeline is, that type of deal. But I was also listening to my staff, right? Well, what I've heard on tours, that type of deal. The what I've heard isn't always defendable, right? So I asked Gracie if she could create for me a SWOT analysis around the Viridian Collective. Because again, this was the one that started to give me some heartburn because I thought that we may have some renewal intentions. These are the things that will eat away at a Tuesday night and keep you from dinner with your loved ones or friends, right? So I asked, and again, let's kind of look at quickly. She's going to give me my strengths around it. We're doing some really great, right? So if you're a marketing person on here, you got some things you can really start to, tout on, right? People love the serene environment, if you will. We do have some weaknesses. Again, that renewal intention management scores are literally at the floor level, excuse me. And then opportunities. What I love is that remediation piece that starts to come in play. And she's literally saying residents have identified clearly that the gate, valet trass, HVAC, water shutoffs, parking are all fixable issues. That's a targeted remediation plan that you can enact. This is 4 hours of assembly that's literally gone. What's left is the part that you're really good at, and that is running your sites for operational excellence. So, David, I'm excited to kind of hear one of your favorite things about Intelligence Plus.
Oh gosh, there's there's so many favorite things about it. I mean, what Jay was just showing, what I really love about this is you don't have to be an expert at reading a dashboard. It's a really low barrier to entry in terms of, hey, I have a question, I need an answer, and it comes back with really good answers and insights. That's probably one of my favorite things about it. But I also do love how it surfaces things that are critical and what you need to be focused on. And I'm going to show that in a second. But
Hey,
before
David,
yeah,
let's say before that, and I just pulled up our own analytics screen because I got a question for you. When
yeah.
you were developing this, we don't usually get product people on the line, so I'm gonna pick your brain while we're here. But when did make the data easier to get stop being really the end gold for you all? Oops.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's a great question. So I mean, I'll start from the very beginning, right? How much time we got? No, I'm joking. So when I started on this journey and doing a lot of discovery, talking with a lot of customers, it was pretty clear that you guys were prioritizing implementing data-driven strategies, and that was really to mitigate the risk of record high operational cost, high employee and resident turnover. I think the last time I checked, resident turnover was hovering around 44% and costing roughly around $4,000 to $5,000 to replace a resident. So we knew based off those conversations how important it is for our customers to be as lean and as efficient as possible, while at the same time ensuring that your teams are performing optimally. And in order to do that, you need data, right? What they were commenting in the chat. You need a holistic view and understanding of your people, your properties, your market performance, and all of that that's required to do that comprehensive analysis lives in disparate systems. And actually, oftentimes, is owned by different functional groups within your organization, just being another barrier to getting that data. So I actually spoke with customers who have entire teams of people whose sole purpose is to aggregate data on a regular basis for reporting purposes. And if you and you gave like the monthly view, $20,000 view earlier previously, but if you roll all that FTE spend up to an industry level, we're talking millions and millions of dollars each year. So there was a significant economic motivation to address that problem. Our first stab at this was creating a comprehensive analytics dashboard that combines training, mystery shop, survey results in a single pane of glass view. However, like I mentioned earlier, not everybody's an expert at reading dashboards and graphs and visualizations, and nor do they really have the time to do that type of analysis. So it's stopped being the goal the moment that we realize that having data at your fingertips doesn't automatically lead to taking action. In multifamily, knowing your resident satisfaction score dropped is kind of useless if you don't have the time or bandwidth to diagnose the root cause and execute a fix. So the goal shifted from being data access to prescriptive action when we realized that operators are simply too busy to dedicate resources to extensive data digging. So instead of making users go to look for insights, Intelligence Plus automatically summarizes the data, highlights critical areas needing attention, and then prescribes specific tailored recommendations that could be incorporated into an action plan. So essentially, we took our analytics to the next level with this, and that is to say that, hey, we're going to do the heavy lifting for you. And so the elevated version of what we just looked at, the dashboard, and also just hey, I got a question and I need an answer. The elevated version is not even needing a question in the first place. So I think that's a good segue to take a look at what we got next on the agenda.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. Thank you, Jay. So here we are. We're back on the overview page where we started with the previous demo. And this page is broken down into a few sections, but where I want you to focus your attention is the critical insights area of the page. So we all dedicate time, resources to collecting resident feedback. We send out surveys, we read comments, we track scores. But I do want you to ask yourself, how often does that massive volume of feedback truly translate into tangible, concrete improvements? And too often it really doesn't. And the core problem is impactful insights like these that Jay's showing on the screen, they're often buried in thousands of data points and even more, thousands of unstructured survey comments. So you're practically sitting on a gold mine of information, but it's hidden or out of reach. So it could literally be a Herculean effort to manually translate raw survey responses into meaningful, actionable insights. And without a clear data-driven view, you're kind of simply guess which areas to prioritize for improvement. That wastes time, that wastes energy, and it also makes it difficult to get buy-in needed to take action. So what we're looking at here is this is our commitment to moving beyond just like reporting the news, in that we're shining a flashing light on what's critical and what actions you could take to boost performance. So we call this here our critical insights carousel, and this displays a number of insight cards that are prioritized by criticality. That's really key. So you could scroll left or right with the most critical items being at the beginning of the carousel. So those may be insights regarding safety, security, management communication, renewal intentions. The point is to direct your attention to what matters most right when you open this page, without the need for running a report or asking a question. This is served up to you automatically, but it doesn't stop at what the problem is. It recommends how you could fix it. So as you can see, we have a location here that is experiencing significant concerns about safety and security, citing issues with lighting, crime break-ins, theft, emphasizing the need for improved security measures. It also gives you the context that this is based on 27 respondent comments. So that's So now you know that is a statistically relevant theme. But again, we don't just tell you what the problem is. We also provide these list of recommendations that could easily be incorporated into an action plan as tasks that can be assigned out and tracked. So we're really addressing that feedback to action gap to ensure that the results that you're getting are actually the rubber hits the road and action is taken on those results. But we're going to take a look at action plans in a second. But um, let's say you wanted to view insights for a specific location. You could also easily leverage filters here at the top of the page to do just that. Here we are. Yeah, we're going to take a look at Ocean Club. So one thing you'll notice is the overview just updated to summarize just what is critical for Ocean Club. And one insight here that's really catching my attention is that service-related issue at move-in. You may ask, why did that catch my attention? Well, I'll tell you why. Yeah, let's open that up. There you go. Did you know that 41% that residents are 41% more likely to be satisfied compared to those who experience a maintenance issue within the first 30 days of move-in? Moreover, most controllable churn decisions form within the first 90 days of a tenancy, making move-in probably the most underutilized lever operators have. In fact, according to NAA, a standard 225 unit building at 40% turnover rate costs the property over $160,000 annually. And reducing turnover by just 1 unit per month can save an operator more than $20,000 per year. So that's why insights like this are so critical and why it's equally important to implement mitigation strategies to ensure a better move-in experience. It's essentially your second chance to make a good first impression, if you will. And in this case, Intelligence Plus, it provides a number of recommendations that can easily be incorporated into an action plan for implementation and tracking. And that's what we're going to take a look at next.
Awesome. Hey, David, before we look at that, there is a lot of noise in this industry, right? And I think somebody had put in the chat, like, we go pull it, and then by the time we pull it, like, there's already something else, right? There's just a lot of noise. Can you
100%.
talk to us a little bit, like, when you were designing this, how do these things, like the critical insights, not just become another noise within their day-to-day?
I mean, that's certainly a fair concern, especially with multifamily industry. And honestly, preventing what I would call alert fatigue was one of our top priorities when building this. And we do that really in three ways. One, signal-based thresholds, right? So an insight isn't triggered by random blips. Every card is driven by a distinct performance signal that's tied to a clear, verifiable piece of evidence or multiple pieces of evidence. Two, context and prioritization. So I just kind of mentioned this, but instead of burying you in raw notifications, the UI is categorizing these insights by criticality. So you instantly know what needs immediate focus versus what's running smoothly. And then lastly, we have role-based relevance. So users, when they come to this page, they only see insights for the specific properties or regions that they manage. So a regional manager isn't coming in here and getting spammed with data outside of their scope. So the bottom line is when you look at a card, you instantly get the why. And if it ever feels like clutter, then we got it wrong. That's a bar that we set for ourselves.
Awesome. All right. David, can you, again, I know you talked about how sometimes these things just go in a folder, right? Can you talk about how we close that loop a little bit?
Yeah. So I said earlier that, a report gets read, it goes in a folder, and hopefully that just doesn't, uh, never get looked at again. But what Intelligence Plus did, and we're talking about that service-related issue at move-in card that we were just taking a look at, this triggered in June. And within the platform, you could assign training to address that the same day. But what was also done at the same time is this action plan was created around this issue. And the recommendations that we provided were promoted to being tasks that you could assign out to team members and employees within your organization, the boots on the ground that could actually affect change. And now you being the plan owner, you could track these tasks to fruition. And each one of these tasks tying back to resolving the underlying issue that Intelligence Plus identified in the first place.
Yeah, David, I love that. And so, little quick story time for those on the call to kind of put in a real life example of what we've heard from one of our clients. And this wasn't around a survey related issue, but they found out from their survey feedback. This operator did that residents were really struggling with the product itself, that it needed some renovation. They were able to surface through Intelligence Plus that theme, if you will. As a result, they got a $100,000 renovation approved by the ownership, and it has already drastically changed the NOI for that customer. And that was in the budget, right? Like that's how they justified it in the budget. So as we kind of transition into that budget, that's what I would challenge you all to think about, right? Is you don't want a line item in the budget that says, well, we think this is going to move the needle. The better answer is I have specific properties, I have specific findings, I have specific themes and recommendations to move the needle, right? One of the things David and I talked about in the critical insight cards here, actually, some of them are going to tie with training recommendations. And I remember I was like, hey, David, why don't we do that for everything? And David, I think you said to me, like, hey, if every recommendation was just a training recommendation, then we just built a better LMS. We didn't buy a holistic, build a holistic tool. So for me, that was really important. Last thing we want to show you all here as we begin to kind of round the base for home, if you will. I'm going to drop back into Gracie. Everything that we've kind of talked about right now is things that happened within kind of your four walls of your organization, right? But again, let's go back to that underperforming asset. Here's literally what I heard from another client the other day, and they were an asset manager for about a mid-tier company, and they said, hey, we had an underperforming asset. They came to us wanting to talk about the power of Intelligence Plus, and they said, we began to see it, that we thought our shop scores were pretty mediocre. Standards were going down. So they thought, we're not being held to a standard by leadership, so they made a manager change. Manager changes are costly, right? They're costly for your teams, they're costly for training, they obviously cost you money to go out there and advertise for that role. Little did they find out later on, a property 2 blocks over had dropped rents by 8% in May. And they said nothing we were doing at a person level was going to change the fact that this was a pricing issue, right? So while I am a revenue manager and I hate the conversations about reducing pricing, let's talk a little bit about how we take that look in Intelligence Plus outside the four walls. So I asked a question here. Is pricing an issue at the Vineyards of Valley View? If not, what is driving that potential resident churn? I do want to say for this one, this involves our Hello Data product. So if you have not heard from us lately, we were fortunate enough to bring Hello Data into the Grace Hill family. Hello Data is a market survey tool. I know there's a lot of chatter out there right now. It's been in the news and some litigation around it. This is all publicly scraped material. So it's going to website, ILSs, etc., to generate this information. So hopefully that takes a little bit of maybe the anxiety out of that, right? But when we look at this today, we noticed, okay, Vineyards of Valley View is not a pricing issue. And I do think particularly, and I love my on-site teams, but our on-site teams a lot of times go, we just need to reduce the rents, right? This tells us that this one, it's not a pricing issue at all. What it is a potential issue, cleanliness and maintenance, leasing and move-in experience, right? So Hello Data was able to go out, grab the comp set. So we were able to look and go, again, let's hone into really good answers. So all this data, it lives in different places, right? People have to go remember to get it. So make sure that you're not having a data problem, that you're not making decisions without the holistic view. Because pricing wouldn't be the answer to Vineyards of Valley View, right? All right, as we kind of wrap up here, what I really want you to think about again is your resident data, your team data, your market, all in one view as a clickable source. That's how you make justifiable recommendations, you move the needle. So as we close here, there were 3 demos that hopefully you'll take away from here. One, we looked at cross-platform correlations. Quick, tired answer of how does training and my property performance go hand in hand. The second one, we were able to dive in. David showed us how how we surfaced a theme based on that resident feedback, right? And how you're able to fix and close that loop. And then finally, we looked at resident sentiment, but how it sits next to your comps. And we were able to watch it change a potential diagnosis from pricing to a people or a product issue. Not one of those works if those 4 things live in 4 disparate systems, right? That's the argument, that these data points, they all belong in one platform. So every data or signal that your team captures this summer leads to a clear next step. With that said, it's August. I'm going to wrap up. It's August. It's hot. We know your numbers are due. Let's let Intelligence Plus do the heavy sweating for you. And with that said, Kayla, I will turn it back to you.
Thank you, Jay. Before we open it up for questions, do you know someone who goes above and beyond, not just at work, but for their community? Someone volunteering at a shelter, running a nonprofit, showing up for foster kids, giving back in ways that don't make headlines but change lives? Nominate them for Grace Hill's Impact Hero Awards, or nominate yourself if that's you. Scan the QR code for more details and to apply. 3 finalists win a donation to the charity of their choice: $3,500 for the grand prize winner, $2,000 for first runner-up, and $1,000 for second, plus an all-expenses paid trip to the awards ceremony in Dallas, Texas. All it takes is a few minutes and a photo. Hurry, nominations close August 28th. Let's get one of your people up on that stage. Okay, now it's time to open it up to our audience for questions. If you haven't done so already, please submit your questions for Jay and David using the Q&A box located on your Zoom webinar panel. We did have a few questions come in during the session that I can start with. You still have time to get those in. Do I need Grace Hill surveys or other Grace Hill products for Intelligence Plus to work?
Yeah, I'll take this one, Kayla. So short answer is yeah. Intelligence Plus does run inside Performance HQ and works with your works from your resident survey data. So you will need Performance HQ with an active Grace Hill survey program to use it. Surveys are the only requirement to get started. Intelligence Plus will turn those results into prioritized actions on its own. From there, the more performance data that you connect in, training, survey, training, shop, hello data, the richer your insights become. Because Intelligence Plus can link those signals across products to surface things that no single tool could do.
Very good. We have one. Can you please repeat the last of the 3 points?
Last of the 3 points. Kayla, do we know which one they were?
Well, we presented 3 today.
Oh, I think it was about the hello data comp set, if that's the one that you're talking about. So the last one was making sure that you're able to really look at a full, is this a people product pricing issue? So going outside your 4 walls, outside that resident survey, your training feedback into what's my comp set doing so that you're able to really, provide a diagnosis with a holistic view.
Very good. I've got another one here. You are right that it is busy season. How fast could we actually be up and running if we started today?
So I'll take that one. How fast do you want to move is kind of the answer for us. I do have account executives that are obviously ready to reach out, have conversation, understand the needs of your organization, and really find the perfect solution fit for you. I will say typically, if you're going to need survey to go with that, it's about 30 to 45 days from the support with our implementation team. So the long story short is we can get you up and running and hopefully help you backfill the end of 2026 and start 2027 out really strong.
Awesome. All right, we did have a few more come in. I've got time for one more. How does this handle data across a portfolio with different property types or in different regions?
Hmm. I could take that one, Jay. So Intelligence Plus, it analyzes your entire portfolio at once, but then it does let you filter and compare by region, property. If you're familiar with Performance HQ, set up groups. So we have groups in Performance HQ. So you could see a portfolio-wide view and then sort of drill into those different organizational structures, if you will. And it does aggregate data at those different levels as well. So that means a trend at one property, it doesn't get buried in the portfolio average, and a regional pattern doesn't get missed. You could spot where performance varies across markets, compare like for like, focus attention where it matters most. Whether that's, one struggling asset or a systemic issue across an entire region. So it's pretty flexible in that regard.
Awesome. All right. Well, as we wrap up here, I am excited that hopefully some of you took some things away in order to elevate your really operational excellence, to cut through some of that data noise. With that said, if you're ready to have your data work for you rather than working to get your data, if you'll drop "stay cool" into the chat, we'll just have somebody follow up with you. Again, we just want to hear, where are you at as a company? What's your KPIs for the rest of 2026 leading into 2027? And let's see if we can help you. So again, drop "stay cool" for a no pressure chat, and we'll just talk with what's going on there. And with that said, if you are able to add surveys with Intelligence Plus by August 31st, so we are able to get that done by the end of the month. And again, I've got teams ready to have that conversation. We're able to offer you 2 months free on a 24-month contract. So really help you hopefully get it in there, figure out that number for the remainder of 2026, and then have it to roll into 2027 with a lot of success. So, all right, Caleb, back to you
All
at
right.
the moment.
It's the moment you've all been waiting for. It's the time to give away the Nugget Ice Maker gift pack. As a reminder, you had to be here live to win, so this is your payoff for sticking with us. Just a moment ago, I pulled the winner from the live attendee list using an online randomizer, and the winner is
Drum roll.
Claire H. Congratulations, Claire H. Your countertop nugget ice maker, syrup set and cups included, is officially on its way. Keep an eye on your inbox. We will email you shortly to confirm your shipping details. If you didn't win, don't sweat it. The bigger takeaway is still yours to keep. Intelligence Plus can do the heavy lifting on your data so your evenings go back to the pool instead of the spreadsheet. So we look forward to following up with everyone, those questions included that we didn't get to. And if you'd like to see Intelligence Plus wrangle your own portfolio performance data, we can set that up. If you think additional questions or would like to connect with our speakers, find them on LinkedIn using the QR codes on your screen, or drop them a note via email. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Everyone, stay cool out there. Goodbye.
Thank you.